business is not complex. It's just very, very hard. I say that to my team quite often. The bigger the business grows, the more opinions there are, the harder it is to stay focused. Is my current challenge, I think, in BBT at the moment. I believe that you're either high volume, low margin, or you're high margin, low volume. That's the two aspects to that paradigm, pendulum swing.
Really? So we have no plan or no structure, and it can go anywhere.
I'm shocked and surprised at this, but that's fine.
Are you? Yeah, everyone likes questions and prepared. I looked up your name just to remind me, and now here we are.
Perfect. It's Mike, not Mark, too. Remember that, mate.
It's important. Yeah, I got Brian. It's tough. So what are you interested in at the moment? Like, what are you thinking about? What gets your gears turning at the moment?
Oh, that's a good question. Growth. I've got a kind of saying in life and with the team that you're either you're growing or dying. So, and that takes all sorts of different forms. What am I interested in at the moment? Look, I think the market that we're playing in is a pretty interesting market, and I think there's a lot of opportunity out there, a lot of people that need a lot of help to move digital transformation projects and things along. Obviously AI is an interesting kind of topic that's going on at the moment that we're looking at pretty heavily. I assume that's where you're wanting to lead this conversation.
Not necessarily, bro. Wherever you go. You're the star of the show. I'm just the compadre.
There we go. And look, on a personal standpoint, I've got a little boy on the way soon. Which will be our second child. So, setting all that up, getting ready for child number 2 to arrive. It's pretty exciting.
Boy? You're foreshadowing.
We know that it's a boy.
Okay.
Yeah. So he's due in a few weeks, which is pretty exciting. That's keeping me pretty busy on the home front, along with our little girl, who's almost 2.
Jeez. So just on that, fatherhood is a universal experience. They've either had one or heard of one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or they have kids of their own.
Yeah.
How do you navigate either your feelings of inadequacy as a man and trying to be there for your children, or trying to replicate or avoid being what your father was to you?
Well, I had a pretty awesome dad.
No
daddy issues. If I could replicate a lot of what he taught me, I think I'd be doing pretty well. Oh. I think it's funny. Me and my wife have spoken about this quite a lot. The environment that our kids are going to grow up in is really scary in some ways, but really exciting in others. So, when I was growing up, I remember the first Nokia 3310 I think I had that had Snake on it, and that was kind of, it was 20 cents a text and it was like $5 a minute to call somebody. So, you're not really plugged into the internet or anything like that. You're messaging a cute girl at school and, $5 later you've got no more credit left and that's the end of that conversation, Whereas our kids are going to grow up and it's not even what it is now with social media and stuff. It's going to be another level again. And, with my little girl, I think my worry is confidence, her self-confidence, self-belief, that kind of thing. That's probably the thing that I think about the most in terms of raising my little girl. My little boy, I think, from my perspective, the focus will be on respect, and if I can do that right and alongside Amanda, my wife, I think we'd be doing pretty well. But yeah, it'll be interesting. It'll be an interesting ride. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah,
it's already been an interesting ride.
We'll get into. You're probably daunted at what the fuck's this guy going to say now? You can swear if you want.
Yeah, no.
So self-worth, and what would be your process to develop that or to instill that? Because that's. I have a theory. If you want to buy some
Why
time.
don't we start with your theory, mate? You can buy me some time on that. Very philosophical question.
Yeah, did you think it was about business?
Yeah. Far out. Okay.
Now, mine is so there's the external experience and there's the internal experience, but they're both actually the external experience. By that I mean, when you're a child, you saw shit, you experienced it, you interpreted it, you made it mean something. So it's a concept in psychology of reparenting. So if you have something that taught you don't have self-worth, it's about reteaching it that you do have self-worth. So how you do that is to express the things that you're afraid of in an environment that accepts you. So you retrain your mind.
Mm-hmm.
That's my theory on self-worth. So it's like incrementally expressing things with a high probability of success. So I'm scared. They say, that's okay, I still love you. Or you just say hi, and then they don't reject you and walk off, and you build up. And then instead of you trying to bench 200 kilos on the first day, you're off.
Yeah.
I can do that. But like,
Yeah. I'm sure you can, mate. Yeah, you got a big frame.
Yeah. Bulking.
Yeah, that's right, mate. That's right. It's a really interesting question, self-worth, Like, I think everybody has times in their lives where they are feeling really good about life, and then times in their lives where they're potentially not feeling so good. And so from my perspective, look, in terms of my little girl, what I think about is when things fly at her that are outside of her control, how is she going to react to that? So, being bullied, breakups, I'm talking the teenage years. I'm not so concerned about, when she's 2 years old, but it's those kind of events that are pretty, we remember those events growing up, right? Everybody remembers their first girlfriend, their first breakup, if you've been bullied, you remember that kind of stuff. And it's how you adapt to that situation where there's a certain level, I think, of acceptance required. There's definite learning around how did this happen? How did I find myself in this position? What am I going to take from it? Whether or not that pulls down to what am I worth as an individual or not, I don't know, to be honest. And I said to you that I was conscious of this because it's the thing that I'm probably grappling with in terms of being a father, is how to instill that. I don't know the answer. I know from my personal experience that self-worth was always something that I think my parents instilled in myself and my brother, and I take my hat off to them for that, because there's been a lot of challenges in my life that I've been able to back myself, understand the work and effort that was required to get to the situation I wanted to get to, etc. So I don't know that answered your question, but I don't know the answer, so
yeah, you did well.
I'm going to go on this journey to find out, mate.
We got another 30-odd minutes, mate. You're fucked.
Yeah, so keep those curly questions coming, though, mate.
Yeah,
I've been thinking about that for a while.
Yeah, no, this is bullshit. Where are you from? So an interesting thing I'm exploring at the moment is what makes Mr. Beast is the best creator of all time in terms of viewership and converting that into monetary attention. And he says what makes a video incredible is the idea, matters more than the production quality. And then he said study Pixar films in order to determine what a good idea is and what makes a beautiful story. And I asked AI to do it because I'm lazy. And it talked about emotional themes in people's lives. So like they're not good enough, not feeling wanted. Like Toy Story 3 is like abandonment, getting abandoned by the child because there's a new toy.
Yep.
So you talked about hard moments. You can pick your moment, but I imagine there'll be someone listening that will resonate with that. Another thing they said is the character. They admire a character that tries more than a character that achieves. So I'm wondering if there was a moment where you're like, this is dark. How the fuck am I going to work this out? Whether it's business, whether it's, financially, you're a father, mortgages coming, and then, the money's like, well, I don't know where that went.
Yeah,
I'm doing that every week.
Yeah. I feel you. Look, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I haven't. How do I rephrase that? Look, I think in my life the kind of challenges and things that I've had in the grand scheme of things pale in comparison to a lot of challenges that other people have had. Right? Like I've been relatively healthy my entire life. I haven't had any really catastrophic kind of things go on in my life. Growing up in a small town in Hawke's Bay, was bullied through school. So, at the time, I guess that's pretty tough to kind of work through. Really supportive parents, changed schools, really thrived in the new school. And, with business and with life, the normal things that people go through, long-term relationships that have ended, that kind of stuff. And in business, it's a challenge every single day. But I guess there's a scale of challenges, and probably the thing that I've recognized in myself over the last few years is my limit. And I don't know whether that's getting older, getting wiser. I doubt it, because I don't think I'm any wiser. But, you know, there's times in my life where there's been a lot going on, you know, and fairly recently there was an issue with our property where it was a leaky home without us realising it. So that's an entire process to work through how we're going to unpick ourselves from that. There is, you know, business, which is always a huge opportunity, but a big challenge that's just always present and always constant, you know, building a family. So there's these big core, your health, your family, and, you know, your kind of financial life. And it's how you juggle all of that at all times and try to do the best you possibly can. And it's impossible to be awesome at all the time. When I was really pushing the business hard, working 100, 120-hour weeks to try and get something off the ground, your health deteriorates because, you know, you put on lots of weight and all of that kind of stuff. When you need to invest time in your health, then, you know, that means you've got to take it away from somewhere else. So it's that constant juggle, I think, that is a challenge for me personally. And so from my perspective, it's just try not to do too much at once, which is hard, which is very hard. Say no to more things than you say yes to, which is a challenge because I like to learn and grow. So, yeah.
I've just been going all in on Alex Hormozi. I don't know if you've seen him. He's this new guy coming on that was earning more than all the CEOs of all the major companies in the world, like 10 of them combined. Mm-hmm. And he was just talking about, you know, your success is the quality of the no's you give out, mm-hmm. what you say no to. And then he also has talked about focusing on the highest leveraged activity.
Yep.
So how, as you grow, because from my understanding, you know, 8 months of failure, I'm no business guru, but it seems like the first 3 years is, you know, your head down, it's a work ethic, it's a focus on a certain thing and finding the right boat to get in.
Yep.
Then after that, it becomes a matter of how you divide your attention. So what's the framework you use to decide on what's the most appropriate thing to focus on?
Yeah, I think that changes, right? So BBT's been around 9 years. In the beginning, I was 24 when we started, and it was literally just work your ass off and make it happen. There was no time in my life for anything else. You know, a little bit of going out and socializing and that kind of stuff, because there's always room for that. But you know, there was no room for anything else. I'd just come out of a 5-year relationship with somebody, and I said to myself, right, that's it. I'm just going to dive straight down into work and just make that happen. And I was working hugely long hours, just getting shit done. And you wear so many different hats, and it doesn't matter because you're just out there. You're thriving on adrenaline, and that, for me, worked really well for the first 2 or 3 years. And then very quickly you realise that that's not sustainable. You haven't had a day off in, you know, the better part of 2 years. And you're working 7 days a week, very, very long hours. That eventually the adrenaline goes away, and it gets more into the grind, the routine, and you've got to turn up every day doing the things that you need to do. And so then as the business grows and develops, you've got more people. So people come with opportunity, but it comes with challenge. And so for us at the moment, the kind of framework that we're working through is the OKR framework. So what does the business need in order to get to where our goal is? So what is our goal? What do we need to do in order to get there? The 3 to 5 things, that's it. Any more than that, it's just a wish list. And then how is it that our senior leadership team and then their lieutenants and then staff underneath them are aligning to what those OKRs are. So my belief is in business, sales fixes everything. So that's always what does our revenue top line look like, and what are the activities that we're doing alongside that? What's our sales activity? What does our account management activity look like? And really align on that. And if there's aspects that individuals or staff or teams are doing that don't align to those OKRs, we've got to ask the question is, why are we doing it? Because if it's not aligned to that OKR, if we get the OKRs right and doesn't align to that, then we're not all paddling in the same direction. So for us, that's something that we work pretty hard on. We don't always get it right because it's easy to go, oh, I've got this idea, why don't we explore this? But, that focus, that saying no, to try and stay as rightfully focused as possible, to move the needle, not, 300% like we used to, but, when you're just starting out, but move it, 1 or 2% and do that every single day. All those cliches, mate,
Fucking true,
business.
It's like I've yet to meet a person that didn't know what they need to do. There's some level of I didn't have that strategy quite right. I didn't know what Facebook ads were or whatever.
Yeah.
But most of the time, it's just asking questions so they realize, okay, yeah, now I got to do it.
Yeah. 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 And look, everybody would have their own different opinions of this. And I have by no means built an empire that is the envy of the world. I'm no Tesla, Elon Musk, etc. But, business is not complex. It's just very, very hard. I say that to my team quite often. So, align on what you need to do. Understand your customers really clearly. Understand what their pain points are. See where you fit in that and how you can alleviate some of that pain point. Be good people to work with. Say what you do. Deliver to the best of your ability. And if you can do that, and your pricing model's right, you should be okay. But again, the bigger the business grows, the more opinions there are, the harder it is to stay focused. Is my current challenge, I think, in BBT at the moment.
So on the pricing thing, as I say, I'm not a big wide learner. I'll learn from everyone. I'm learning from you, but I just obsess over one person till I get it. And so another Alex Amosi is you're doing a disservice if you don't charge too much.
Mm-hmm.
So because you had that higher price point, and he also says, think of if you were to charge $100,000 for your product or service, what would you deliver?
Mm-hmm.
If this last client was the only client that could ever grow your business, was the only one that would ever refer it, how would you treat them?
Mm-hmm.
So with the pricing part, he believes that because you have a higher price point, that leads to a greater emotional investment from your client. It attracts a different type of client that isn't as anal, for lack of a better word, and it allows you to provide a level of service your competitors can't.
Yep.
So what are your thoughts on pricing?
Yep. I've got my thoughts on pricing are you've got to decide what kind of business you're in. So I believe that you're either high volume, low margin, or you're high margin, low volume. That's the two aspects to that paradigm, pendulum swing. And so if you are a scale business that in our environment, if you believe that the way for you to get to where you want to get to is to service 20,000 clients and they're paying you, $5,000 a year kind of scenario, it's the mum and pop kind of business, that kind of thing, then cool, you can build a great successful business by doing that. But if you go for larger projects, larger problems, more complexity, etc., then generally that means longer term projects, which therefore means higher cost. And that's the kind of space that we play in. And the reason for that, to be perfectly honest with you, is more around the enjoyment that I get out of turning up to work every day and my team gets out of it. We have smaller clients, but our bread and butter is mid-market businesses that want to move the needle in their organisation through digital transformation or a better customer journey. And so we like projects where there's a real business problem and it's hard. You're dealing with multiple stakeholders, you're dealing with new technology, you're dealing with old processes and old systems, you're dealing with entrenched beliefs in the business around how things should be done. And so those kind of challenges are what the team thrives on. Less so, building a small, tiny website for $1,500. We did that when we started because it doesn't matter where the cash comes from. You just need cash.
You need to live.
And so what we've found is, from a pricing standpoint, really it's about what are the customers that we're targeting and what are the problems that we're solving and what value do those problems bring to those organizations as well. And I think that's probably something that not too many people really think about. If you're solving a problem that's going to add, $500,000 to a business's bottom line, well, what's the value of that? That value conversation isn't often had, I don't believe, in a lot of the business owners that I talk to anyway. So for us, the pricing came out of the back of what are the problems that we're solving and who are the clients that we're solving them for, and then the rest just kind of took care of itself, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It's crazy to me, like, so I did commissioner sales and management because people scared me, so I was like, fuck it, I'll just do it every day, work it out. And I noticed my ability to articulate their problem, like ask questions to emphasize that problem and link it to what they're trying to achieve, will determine their perception of price. Which is crazy. Like if you like you said, if you link the degree of the problem and they associate that, then the price doesn't seem as bad. Like everyone starts here with the price up here and then the value goes like this. Can you articulate the value, or do you have is it kind of a speculation because you've had these clients, they've had a result, can you ensure bottom line gain, or how do you get around that?
I guess with anything like this in terms of digital transformation, because there's a lot of complexity to it, and improving customer journey as well, right? Like there's the kind of two aspects to our business. How are customers interacting with your business, and how does the business serve your customers in the most streamlined way possible? So in terms of sorry, mate, what was the question on that? I lost my train of thought there.
Yeah, it was like, how do you show proof of
Yeah. So more often than not, the kind of companies that we are talking to have a problem. And so what they're trying to do is solve what that problem is. Now, that problem might be we want to increase the lifetime value of our customer. We want to decrease the cost to serve our customers. We just want better visibility over what the hell is going on in this business through CRMs, what's our time to close, all of that kind of stuff. And so understanding what the problem is and how to solve the problem, the value kind of takes care of itself. But there are examples where we will actively talk to customers around what is possible, that there's automation available, that you can remove a whole bunch of manual process work in your business at the moment by doing this, automated triggers, whatever that might be. And so that's a pretty academic kind of conversation to have as well, because it goes, okay, well, if we could streamline this so that these 6 staff that you've got currently doing data entry are now focused on this other value add in your business, what does that mean for your business, if that makes sense? So there are those value conversations. More often than not, though, when we're initially talking to a customer, they have a desire or they have a problem that they're trying to resolve, and so they're looking for a company like ours to try and help them do that.
Nice, well done. Sense. Yeah, no, it does. And this turns off at 30 minutes, but you're still live. I just should have told you before.
There we go.
Because sometimes you're talking and I ignore you and just push a button and you're like, this piece of shit. So
I can tell that you're riveted by my every word, so don't worry about it, mate.
I am, bro. Yeah. Honestly, I don't take this the wrong way, but I'd learn from a homeless man. You know what I mean?
I agree, mate. That's all part of that growth mindset, right? I got told when I was quite young that if you have a conversation with somebody and you're not interested in what is being said, or you're not learning anything, then you're not answering the right questions, and the problems are with you, not with the other person. It's an interesting mindset.
Well, and it's incredible for connections. I'm not saying that connections happen right now. I'm being presumptuous, but how to win friends and influence people. The most powerful way to be interesting is to be interested. So I wrote a book on B2B marketing recently, just as a lead magnet to get details, but I haven't made a website. We'll get to that later. Just selling, bro. Fuck it. It can come.
Yeah. If you need some strategic advice on that, I'll tell you, get a website. But anyway.
Yeah. Because they Google me before they come.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the mistake. So I used to struggle to connect with people and understand them. There was the 2 most valuable things for me was mirroring and matching. Have you ever heard of that?
Yep.
Yeah. Anyone that listening, it's kind of like when people get in rapport, they seem to mirror the style of communication. So just skip that step and just start mirroring that style of communication so they can relate.
It's a real sales hack.
Yeah. And eventually you just don't do that and be a human being. But it's good if you're shitting yourself and you got to pull it together.
Well, it's a technique, right, that you can use. And it's really amazing. When I first learned that years ago, it's incredible how you'd lean in and then they'd lean in and then you'd scratch your nose and they'd scratch their face and you're like, holy, this is some voodoo wizardry stuff going on.
Oh, what? I kid you not, when we were recruiting for the sales team, we'd sit there, mirror them, and then both of us would do an exaggerated action and then they'll copy us and be like, yeah, look. But yeah, the interesting thing, like to be able to find something interesting about every person you meet and actually genuinely listen, that's an art. I've mastered it. But to actually genuinely not try to think of what you're going to say next and let it unfold and allow that person to speak and be heard, they just give you stuff. I don't know how to explain it. Just anyone, if you fucking want to just the Alexa to life, listen and be interested in what people have to say. But anyways, back to you.
It's a real quick way to learn about the world, and I think that probably there's too many people that don't listen enough, I guess. I don't know. I can be pretty guilty being in meetings of just telling people what to do and here's my opinion and here's what I think, and it's something that I'm actively working on to try and listen more and not provide the answer that I believe, especially in a work environment, because when you're the boss it's very easy for people just to fall in line very quickly and go, okay, we just need to do what Mike says. But that's not the culture that we're trying to develop. We're trying to develop a culture where we hold each other to account, we're challenging each other, we're asking those probing questions, and we're not making assumptions. So it's hard. It's very hard, and it's hard for somebody like me that's come from a competitive sports background where your communication style is generally pretty direct. And if you were to ever watch videos of me communicating either as a coach or as a player in the really stupid sport that I play, the type of communication is generally, the fuck are you doing over there? Get back in your fucking spot. You know what I mean? It doesn't quite go down as well in the business sense, but anyway.
It's not Queen's English, mate.
That's right.
So on that's an interesting thing. It shows how much research I've done. So what sport? And you said videos of you, so you're good at that said sport?
So the sport's called canoe polo. I started playing that when I was in high school, and yeah, I've played for New Zealand. I've travelled the world playing it to world championships. I have coached for the New Zealand teams as well. It's been a big part of my life for going on 20 years now. Holy shit, that's scary. Yeah.
Can you do a cartwheel in the canoe?
No. So it's not that kind of sport. It's the kayaks are 3 meters long. It plays very much like basketball in terms of the tactics and stuff. It's just way slower because you're in a kayak. So yeah, I've been playing that for 20 odd years. Currently back-to-back national champion. Just in case any of the polo boys are listening to this. So going for the three-peat next year.
Wow.
Yeah.
So on that, like, either in a leadership role, how do you... My understanding is there's all these different types of personalities and individuals, and there's also tough moments where the best player isn't the best for the team.
Yep.
So how do you navigate professional sports? How do you inspire? How do you critique? How do you allow them to fail so they can take ownership of things?
So first of all, it's not a professional sport, mate. I wish it was. I wish it was. It's an amateur sport in the sense of there's no funding or anything like that. Sport and business are really interesting in terms of when you talk about motivating people, because in sport, it's very easy to motivate people at the elite level, and even coming up through the ranks, so to speak. Because generally, what is it in sport that you want to achieve? It's a championship of some description, or a gold medal or something, most of the time, especially at the elite level. And so, okay, well, if you want to win, what do you need to do in order to win? So you need to win every game. Okay, so how do you win every game? Well, you need to have two good halves. Okay, so how do you have two good halves? You win offense and defense. So how do you do that? So you can break the tasks down into what it is that you need to achieve when you're doing your training. What level of training do you need to do? How often do you need to go to the gym? How often do you need to paddle? What works for you? What position do you want to play in? What's the strengths and the weaknesses that are required for that position? That kind of stuff. So you can break it down really easily, but everybody's aligned to the win, the gold. That's what we're striving for. In business, it's quite a bit harder than that, because what winning looks like in business is different for everybody. So whether that is you want to build a lifestyle that you don't have to turn up to work every day 9 to 5, and you want to spend more time with your family, whether that's cash, you just want as much money as possible to have all the cars and the bling and all of that kind of stuff. Whether it is, I just want to learn and develop and grow my own skills. So what winning looks like in a business sense is very different. So from a sporting standpoint, I found it quite easy to motivate people because you tell them what they need to do. Here's the plan, go away and execute that, because you know that they're aligned to the overall goal. Whereas in business, what that goal looks like is different for everybody, if that makes sense. So motivating those people to say, okay, well, these are the things that you need to do in order to achieve, not working 9-to-5 job or having more time with your family, having more flexibility in your role, that kind of stuff, becomes a really interesting conversation. In the sporting environment, though, my experience in terms of how to get the best out of teams, how to deal with difficult people, and it's not too dissimilar for business. Definitely culture first, team first, but also understanding and recognizing that everybody's got traits.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as a good trait or a bad trait. That's something my wife taught me. They're just traits. So you could be a really stubborn bastard that believes that the earth is flat. And, all of that kind of stuff.
What do you mean believe?
That's right. Or you could be somebody that just likes to be liked and likes to get along with people. And so it's understanding in a sporting environment that how people are going to react to things and how people communicate. Because if you're all trying to strive to achieve the same thing, the way that I might communicate with you is very different to how you might communicate with somebody over here. And understanding that, I think, is a real key important part of success. Obviously, if you're a dickhead, you just need to get kicked out. But most of the time, the more difficult people, they are generally more demanding. They've got a higher expectation of themselves, so therefore that bleeds into the team. And they have a perception that they're working harder than everybody else because they're putting in the hours. Whether or not that's true or whether the training's different, it's just about understanding what is your role in the team, what do we need to get out of you, and how do we ensure that the team is aware of what your role is and vice versa. That's generally been my experience. I certainly didn't get that right when I was coaching New Zealand, I don't think. That's come about later on in coaching and stuff. But, teams are an interesting thing that are multifaceted because you're dealing with people.
Yeah,
so,
I fucking love them, man.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. I'm like, every time I do something, I'm like, oh, there's a limiting belief I have. Oh, I'm fucking projecting the shit out on that Phil first.
Yeah, and there's techniques and things that you can work through around, having a buddy system, having mentors, that kind of stuff, having a good team of people around you. I think the leaders become really important in that environment as well, because generally the young people that are being blooded through are a product of the environment that they come through. So having leaders that are open, having leaders that are vulnerable, because in a sporting environment, you can have all the right things and you can be doing all the training, but it's not until there is that moment. And in any game, there is a moment where the team needs you. You are being relied on. The Stephen Donald kick, in the 2011 Rugby World Cup. There are moments, and back in the day where, you don't talk about those, you don't talk about what you're nervous about or what you're unsure about, etc., and you just bottle it. Is not a good way for performance, and you're leaning away from the challenge rather than leaning into the challenge. And so having those open conversations, I think, have been beneficial. So
yeah, I've heard people, never let them see you bleed because they won't have belief and hope. The most common thing I've seen with training people was that often didn't give a fuck what I said. Not that I was horrible or whatever. It was more the person in the trenches with them. So it was never me trying to say it. It was them saying it to them. Mm-hmm. And then they would often say, oh, it's different for you because you've done this, you've done that, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's not the same for me. So how do you make yourself either accessible as a leader or empower people that are in the trenches so that the same message is said in a way that actually lands?
Yeah.
I like to stump you.
Yeah. The reason why I kind of thinking that one through is because it's something that I'm grappling with at the moment, which is how to lead at scale. So, when we've got 50 odd staff now.
Cool, watch out, eh?
And
Elon Musk, but you're bigger than New Zealand.
And so, having one-to-one conversations is something that I believe I've always been pretty good at. I've had good feedback from the team. You can motivate through that. But all of a sudden, when you're in a room full of people, differing ideas, different beliefs, different experience day in, day out as well. The type of work that they're on, it could be a really hard project, could be a project that's not going well, could be a project that's going exceptionally well and they're thriving and loving it. How to lead at scale is a real challenge. And I've pulled back to, similar to your Pixar story earlier, just telling stories as much as I possibly can. And so when we stand up at our town hall, I've pulled it back to different stories that have happened around the world, this is really bad. I've forgotten what it is, but there's a story about a satellite, a Mars lander that they were trying to land on Mars way back in the day, and it cost Updean hundreds of millions of dollars to get it there, and it got close to Mars, and it kind of just burned up and crashed and died, basically. Crashed and burned, and yeah. Anyway, and so what it came to be afterwards was that they were dealing with scientists in America, scientists in Europe, around the world. Metric system and imperial systems, pretty important to get right. And so telling my team a story around how effective communication is, and when you're not effective with your communication and you're not on the same page, things like this can happen. So trying to tell stories as much as possible. So when you're dealing with somebody that's really new, really green in the team or in business, that hasn't been with you through those real hard grind years where they might see me knock off at 3 o'clock on a Thursday to go pick up my daughter from daycare or whatever while they're there with a lot of work to do, talking them through where the business has come from, that it's a privilege for us to be in this position where we're able to have that time and flexibility and space, I think is quite important. But also understanding that selfishly people are there for a reason, and it's generally to improve or better themselves, whether that's financially, skill set wise, lifestyle wise. So again, being really aligned to that hey, if this is the kind of what you want to get out of, maybe you want to work half a Friday or a 4-day week or whatever, this is what you would need to do in order to get there, generally has worked quite well, if that makes sense.
Does.
Yeah.
On the space theme, as you mentioned Mars, it was Mars, the satellite trying to get to Mars and it fucked up.
This is you not listening, mate, thinking about what you're going to say.
Yeah, no, I failed. I did. That's it. I'll give myself a C- on that one. So JFK walks into NASA and he asks the janitor, "What are you doing, sir?" And he's like, "I'm helping us get to the moon." So I'm wondering, and you also talked about national, the goal of the team to achieve something. So what's your Mars? What's your business Mars? What's the janitor working towards?
So our BHAG is to have...
Oh, big, hairy, audacious goal, eh? Rockefeller.
That's right. So, 100%, mate. So we actually workshopped this last year, to be honest, because it was something that we're like, where are we going and what are we trying to achieve and et cetera. So our BHAG is to get our tech, whether that is, the website systems, the mobile apps, the back behind the scenes, whatever, get our tech in 10% of the world's... Shit, my team going to kill me for this. Get our products and services in the hands of 10% of the world's population. That's our BHAG.
Why?
Well, if you're going to do something, do it bloody well and do the best you possibly can and make a difference. And so when we're working through that, we've got a team of engineers, as you could imagine. And so having a tangible, articulated number is quite important. They generally don't thrive in the grey, if that makes sense, whereas our creative side of things loves thriving in the grey. And so for us, it was, if we're gonna go big, what does that look like? And what is the driving force that in order to get to a number like that, you need to be really good at what you do. You need to be solving big problems for companies at size and scale. You need to build long-term relationships with our clients, our customers. You need to be really innovative. You need to think differently. You need to understand different markets and challenges that come with that. So for us, it encapsulated everything that we want to turn up to work every single day and try and achieve. And that's where that kind of came from. That actually came from the team rather than myself. And so, again, it comes back to that growth mindset. The only way for us to do something like that is to grow our systems, grow our process, grow our people, grow our clients, grow our technology, grow our innovation. And so for me, that when the team kind of came up with that, that was really inspiring for me as the quote-unquote leader, because every single day you're just trying to make a real big difference. And why not?
It's interesting because I heard you talk before where you're talking about staff, and a big part of what's helped you inspire them is to focus on what they want in life.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also talked about the staff created that idea. So I'm wondering, as a gentle challenge, is the vision in itself isn't captivating enough for, for example, if I was to hire someone, I already have a vision and I try and look if their vision, if they can achieve what they want in life through trying to get there.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering, what about you if it was a one-man ship and you're cast out to sea, you're leaving your family, you're leaving everything, no fear, no responsibility. And here's a framework that might be helpful. The most fulfilling thing I find people can do is to help a version of themselves in the world. Whatever problem they've seen or experienced, if they can solve that problem, they feel alive. So I'm wondering if you're on this ship on yourself, going off to Mars or to wherever, where you heading? What's your true north? And you can challenge me on the vision thing. You're like, bullshit, that's a great vision. Fuck you.
That vision's changed in the last 2 years since I've become a dad.
Interesting.
The vision for me now that I have is when my daughter is up getting married, that she is marrying somebody that is, very supportive, very driven, but is going to enable my daughter to become the best version of herself. And I'm sitting next to my wife watching that happen, and we've got a great, loving relationship. So that's the vision that I have. Yes, absolutely, some financial freedom that goes alongside that would be great. Time where I don't have to do things day in, day out would be really nice as well. But that's the vision that I have. So I'd actually be turning that ship around and coming home, to be perfectly honest with you.
Interesting.
Rewind 10 years ago, grand aspirations to take over the world. I want to be the biggest. I want to be the best. I want to make a real dent and impact on the world. And while, look, there will always be opportunity to make a difference in other people's lives, I get a lot of fulfillment out of seeing people around me grow and develop. And I don't need to do that on a massive scale in order to get personal fulfillment. So whether that is a young kid that's just coming through the ranks in canoe polo and, I can be a very arrogant, egotistical slave driver on the court, so to speak. Nothing's ever my fault and I'm never wrong. But that's the persona when I'm on the court. But, seeing a young person come through and develop their skills and, maybe get the winning goal and that kind of stuff, I get a lot of fulfillment out of that. So, for me, it's about building those relationships and helping people where they are asking for help. But more than anything, success for me is getting through this next stage of my life with a great relationship intact with my wife, the freedom for us to do things, whether that's travel or take on other projects, etc., and have a really amazingly deep relationship with my kids. And if I can do 80% of that, I'd be pretty happy. You know what I mean? Yeah.
There's a few things in there, one, developing people, and you're in the home stretch. We've done 45 minutes.
Mate, I've got no time schedule, so,
Oh, wait. I feel honoured. So there's a few interesting things there. Is one, the development of others. Mm-hmm. The one, having a man that could be supportive of the door so she can be the best version of herself. And
or a woman.
Or woman,
mm-hmm.
yeah. Or, whatever, yeah. Or
mm-hmm.
non-binary.
Mm-hmm.
We got 1% of non-binaries
mm-hmm.
listening. I shout them out every third episode or whatever.
There we go.
It's fun. And then the bullying. Great framework at home that helped nurture and support you through the chaos.
Mm-hmm.
In a sense, develop you. And then also this need to be something, So I'm wondering around that piece of the bullying, it's a bit of a deep question, but staying true to form. what was the hardest thing to accept about yourself at that time in your life when you were being bullied?
To be honest, mate, I barely remember. I barely remember that part of my life. Look, the town I grew up in, Flaxmere, you know, I'm the minority. I'm the one white kid, you know, at school and stuff. So, yeah, which, yeah, that's right. So, you know, when you are different, and I empathise with, you know, a lot of the conversations that go on around minorities and the challenges and struggles they have, etc. I do empathise with that because that was kind of the experience that I had when I was quite a bit younger. I don't really remember that. Look, there's aspects that I remember around, you know, you get off the school bus and you run home as fast as you possibly can. I was always able to outrun people, which always worked pretty well. And I had a kid at school, a friend at school actually, that looked similar to what I did. So, and he was a cheeky bugger. So I think people often got us confused, to be perfectly honest with you. But look, I think from my recollection, I remember actually sitting in the car with my mum when we got home, and she asked me how I was going at school and stuff, and I said, I'm just not really enjoying it. And she said, oh, why is that? And I said, oh, I'm just getting bullied, and it's not fun. And she basically pulled me out of school that day. And from memory, she pulled me out of school pretty quickly, and I went to a different school. And it was a school that was more aligned with what I was trying to achieve, you know, and at that point in time, just a better school for me. Not necessarily a better school, but a better school for me. And so I guess, leaning on that parent support and stuff at that point in time was pretty good. So
you're a tricky man. Because I have this theory, is like people that are hyper successful are a little off. And I don't mean that in an offensive way, because they essentially, you need to do more than nearly 99% of people.
Yep.
So the degree of determination, commitment, and consistency. So what fuels that? What drives that? What do you need to prove? Who do you need to be? Whose affection do you need? Why are you getting up in the morning paddling in a boat, bro?
Because if you're not growing, you're dying.
Yeah, the growing thing again.
So, look, I don't need to prove anything to anybody other than myself.
Okay.
And I thrive on a challenge. I thrive on setting the bar really, really high and doing the best I possibly can to reach that. And I fall short every single day. I fall short. Whether that is I want to have this exercise routine, or I want to try and achieve this from a revenue standpoint, or, you know, there's a particular challenge that I'm trying to overcome. Falling short every single day. And I think there's real power in that. I don't like to set the bar really low and pat myself on the back. And it's a real innate personality trait. And there's no such thing as bad traits.
Yeah.
But I do think it is a
shout out, Amanda.
an issue. Shout out, Amanda. That's right. That
I was listening to that one.
That the moment I achieve something, I'm on to the next thing, and I don't know where that comes from, but I'm wired that way. So, as an example, we just last month won back-to-back national championship for canoe polo, which in my circle pretty cool. You know, it's not something I've done before. Yeah, absolutely. And it's chuffed because of the team achievement.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to one of the boys in the team, Nevin, straight after the game, and he goes to me, you know, I thought I would feel quite ecstatic about this because we were the previous year. And he goes, I'm not. And I said to him, I'm just relieved. And Nevin says to me, yeah, I'm just relieved as well. And I was relieved, I think, upon reflection, because straight after that, all I was thinking about was the three-peat. And deep inside, you know, it's not often that the three-peat's achieved in our sport. It's been achieved a couple of times. So, you know, straight away on to the next thing. Not celebrating, not taking a step back to go, big deep breath, look at what I've achieved. It's literally, okay, done that next. And that can be a challenge when, you know, you're trying to work and lead a team where you're not celebrating those little successes. So it's something I have to work really hard on. And we've got our working with me manuals. Everybody that comes into the business has to write there, this is what I'm like to work with, this is how I like to communicate, etc. And one of mine is literally, I am extremely competitive and I struggle to celebrate the small wins and small victories. And when we achieve big things, I'm on to the next thing really quickly. So please hold me to account. and have what we call our champagne moments, to just take stock and recognize that we've achieved something. I don't know, it's just not in me. And I think some of that also comes down to the mentors I've had, both in life, in canoe polo, and in business, where we're all of a similar, the people that I have really gravitated towards, we're all of a real similar ilk. We're not going to rest on our laurels. We're going to continue to grow. We're going to continue to improve, because the version of you yesterday is not the version of you that you need for tomorrow. So how do you continually improve and grow? So, mate, I don't know where that comes from. Maybe I need to do a bit of meditation on that and figure that out. I don't know.
Do you meditate?
I don't meditate. I've tried it. It doesn't work.
Canoeing's meditating.
Yeah. Well, competitiveness and competition definitely is. But, yeah, I don't know, mate. I don't know where that comes from.
Well, when's enough?
Don't know.
When will you be like, you know what, my daughter's...
I think the word enough's an interesting one, right? Because there will never be enough money. There will never be enough time. There's never going to be enough. And what I mean by that is, you might have your house and your freehold on that house. Well, is that enough? Or do you always want more and more? So there is a trap that you're always just trapped in more. I believe that the one thing that you cannot get back ever is time. And so, especially since having Millie, and with a little boy on the way, that time becomes a really important thing. And I think about that every day that I see Millie, and she's friggin' throwing spaghetti on the wall and screaming, and just, you're at your wit's end, you're exhausted, you're tired. Your poor, heavily pregnant wife is having to deal with a large majority of that in the afternoon, and she's tired, and, but there will be a time where I will give anything to be back in that situation where she's packing a wobbly and throwing spaghetti into the wall. And so for me at the moment, it's more about how do you maximize that time, and not just time, but valuable time. But there will never be enough of that. So how do you design everything else around your life in order to maximize that as much as possible? Because when I'm dead, it's that time that becomes really critical, not, I went to work for an extra 10 hours this week, because who cares? You know what I mean? And if that means that monetary-wise there's not going to be as much, so,
Interesting. How does that play out with the vision that your team has?
To be perfectly honest with you, I think you can have your cake and eat it too, to be honest, in that regard. I'm certainly not saying that we're taking our foot off the gas and I'm not focused and all of that kind of stuff. It's what are all the aspects of how are you delivering the most value you possibly can. So I talk to my team quite often around what are the things that I can do in this business that nobody else can. And there's generally one or two of those things, which is more around sales and relationships and solving complex problems. And so I just need to be focused on time doing that. And I shouldn't be doing the other work that needs to get done. Somebody else should be doing that. And with that comes freedom of time and all that kind of stuff. And everybody else in the team, same thing. But back to your question earlier about the team and how they come into that and how they come into the vision. If you know your staff well enough and have those conversations with them to understand what success looks like for them, and you're pretty open about that, I think it's perfectly okay as well to understand and recognise when BBT is no longer the vehicle for that person to achieve what they want to achieve in life, and that's okay. They don't have to be on the wagon for their entire life. And look, there's some people that have been with us a long time. We've got a couple of staff, one in particular that's been with me 9 years, since day one. But there have been people that have come and gone that have been very instrumental through that journey. But they get to a point where they go, I want to go overseas, or this isn't challenging me enough anymore. I've kind of done everything I possibly can. Hey, that's a fantastically amazing conversation to have, because it means that we've got you to a point where you've outgrown us. What an amazing achievement. Shouldn't that be celebrated?
That's a good approach. A lot of people get, scarce and protective and micromanage, and they're stressed and they think everyone else sucks and only they can do the job.
Yeah, it's not how you build highly successful teams, right? You don't see Graham Henry out there kicking the ball over the poles in the 2011 Rugby World Cup, do you? So, yeah, I think that there is huge value in having those open and honest conversations with everybody in your life to understand what does success look like for you. And that changes, and that's fine too.
Well, just on things changing, you've done a solid 55 minutes that you've freed up your time. And we haven't talked about your competency in anything. True Ryan fashion, just to talk
about a what?
Your competency.
Competency?
Yeah, so to wrap it up, what the fuck is this BBT? Like, so you do technology stuff and there are conflicts, problems, and you've got a mid-sized company and you can take over the world. So what's the problem that you're most proud of solving as of late? But you can't be proud because it's done and it's an accolade and you got to keep moving forward. Or a problem you want to or solving.
Oh, look, there's a lot. And they're not problems, Ryan, they're opportunities, okay? Let's just get our language right.
Traits.
That's right. Look, what am I most proud of at the moment? I think one of the things that I'm most proud of, and I've actually got a review with my head of engineering today. He's celebrating his 9th year.
Shout him out, sure.
So, yeah.
Someone poach him.
That's right. Well, now I'm not going to say his name.
You can't. You said be free. He's outgrown you.
No, he hasn't outgrown me, mate. He's stuck with me for life. We're in a marriage. Where was I going with that?
Problem you having a meeting.
Yeah, so problem that a big thing for us a couple of years ago was how do we, especially through COVID and all of that kind of stuff, was how do we build capability, and how do we build capability within the organisation? Having good people that are aligned, pointing in the right direction, having the right training programs and stuff in place, having good communication, etc. But build the capability to build a really exceptional team. And there's always improvements to be made. But, I think one of the things that we'll be discussing this afternoon is how far we've come in the last couple of years and the capability that we have in our organisation at the moment. And that, for me, is something that we will probably toast to and have a beer over it, because it's, again, that is, I think, the most complex thing in business is building capability to deliver for your customers. You need to have your product strategy right. You need to have your customer service strategy right. You need to have your sales strategy right. But you also need to have your team strategy right as well. And so that's probably the one thing at the moment where, we'll probably take a bit of a breath and just kind of celebrate the team that we've got at the moment. Other problems that we're most proud of, look, we're doing some really interesting stuff with a bunch of companies at the moment that are trying to move the needle and deliver better for their customers. And I won't be able to talk about a whole heap of it, but there's some really cool stuff going on in that space at the moment, how to improve customer journey, how to deliver for your customers at scale in a really personalized way, while also not breaking your team by all the workload that they have to do, to keep up with doing that through good systems and stuff from a digitization standpoint. There's some really interesting things with that. But to be honest, mate, from a personal perspective, a challenge that we're working on with a very large company in New Zealand, one of New Zealand's bigger companies, doing a bunch of stuff for them, is no more or less interesting to me than a business that has got 10 staff that are trying to figure out what systems they need to go from 10 staff to 50. I thrive on all of that, I didn't really answer your question, mate, but
So no one knows the fuck you do, bro. You just solve big ass problems.
So what do we do? Okay, so here we go. I can answer that one. So what do we do? So we look at how technology can be implemented into our customers or our clients' businesses to help them improve their customers' journey. So whether that's through their interactions with the business, through things like customer service, customer support, how they are converting online and what does that kind of journey look like. So just overall improving the customer experience, the UI, UX side of things. And then what is the systems and technology that are in the business to help streamline, digitize, and automate. So your classic kind of digital transformation that starts right with the customer and works all the way through to how you're delivering for that customer, and how do you retain that customer for as long as possible. So websites, mobile apps, UI, UX, system integration, system development, cloud-based SaaS applications, all of that. It's kind of what we do.
Okay, well, last question as we wrap up, so we'll put your link in there as well if they want to reach out. What if you had to cut everything from your business and you could only pick one thing that was the most productive, most efficient, and yields the greatest results for you and your clients? What one would you pick?
So we've got product, we've got development, we've got performance. They're the three core aspects to our business. So performance is how things are performing online, obviously. Product is what are we building and what does it look like, and how are we solving business problems, and development is development. If I was to cut any one of those, BBT would not be BBT. It would, I was going to say cease to exist. You can't do what we do without all three of those things. You need to understand who your clients' customers are, what their needs are, and what our clients do, solve problems for, etc., for their customers. You need to understand that in order to understand what is the strategy for our clients to deliver for those customers, and then the technology comes out the back of that, if that makes sense. So if we don't understand who their customers are, we can't recommend the right systems, process, technology in order to serve them. And so therefore the whole thing kind of ceases to exist. So I like to think that we think differently than others out there in the market, because we kind of think end to end. It's not about the technology should fit the business, not the other way around, if that makes sense. So yeah, we think quite differently around that. So if I was to remove one of those, we wouldn't be able to solve the things and do the things that we do, if that makes sense. Because otherwise you're just implementing technology for the sake of implementing technology, or you're just designing pretty things without the business ROI on the back end.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, I get you. And I said only one question, but then your thing said, because, do you think it's less enjoyable to have just one type of client archetype? The problems are relatively consistent. Mm-hmm. There is variation with individuals and people and how they do things. Would that not allow you, if there is enough in New Zealand, to be even better? I only asked the one thing because Alex Amos is like, just do one thing, do all the boring shit, and just do exceptionally well.
Yeah, and I get that. That comes back to saying no and focusing, right? So would it be boring? No. Is it the trajectory that we're going on? Probably.
Like if you just help fucking business consultants or whatever.
I understand. Look, we're very focused on that mid-market in New Zealand, and so we're pretty focused on that. I think we do a pretty good job in that space. So the types of problems that those businesses have across industries and stuff generally are similar in nature, especially when it comes to serving their customers and implementing that digital transformation and technology. There's similar problems, right? How do we streamline this business operation, get better visibility over our data, make smarter decisions quicker, and allow our customers to interact with our business in a way that they really enjoy it. So they're similar in nature in that regard. From a personal standpoint, would it be more enjoyable if that's all we did all day, every day? Maybe on the one hand, because things would probably become simpler and easier. But on the other hand, I bump into founders all the time. I bump into startups, that kind of stuff. We're constantly talking to startups. I'm part of EO, and so talking to other founders and stuff in EO with their business challenges and stuff like that, no matter the size of their business, I love all of it. So from a selfish standpoint, probably not. However, we are focusing more and more and more on what are we great at and what makes us an amazing business to partner with. And we're getting better and better in that every month.
Fair enough.
In my opinion.
Well, you survived my chaotic questions. I
go.
won't hit you with any more.
So I've got a question for you, mate.
Oh, yeah.
Actually.
No, we'd run out of time. No, just kidding. Go.
And I ask this to every potential employee that comes to BBT. Tell me something that you believe that almost everybody else disagrees with you on.
Haters still hate no matter how justified the cause. So whether it's a horrific murderer that's caused, or it's a racist, or it's someone that hasn't been vaccinated, I don't think hate is ever okay.
But a lot of people would agree with you about that.
They don't in reality.
So talk me through that.
So let's say someone's racist. Sorry to bring this in.
Yeah.
But they'll be vilified and hated and alienated because of their hate for others.
Mm-hmm.
People that weren't vaccinated were unvaccinated. Don't mind if someone is or not. They lost all their humanity. They couldn't have a job. They couldn't do this.
Yep.
A lot of people bandwagoned on that.
Mm-hmm.
So in theory, people say that. I often find humans project their own inner turmoil onto others. And there's also a book called Games Primates Play in Economics and Relationships. And it talks about primates can't show affection if they don't have an outlet for aggression. And you see it with, I hate Labour, I hate National, I hate Greens. I hate that. I'm just like, it doesn't matter what a person has done. Hate is a me problem.
Yeah, so it pulls back to that whole Jordan Peterson thing, right? Make your bed before you criticise the world kind of scenario. Yeah, it's interesting. I've got a few friends that, you know, I'm gonna touch on the political thing because I don't know your
I voted Greens, but I think they're loopy.
You know, there's a lot of people that like to blame a lot of that external factor stuff. And again, I think this pulls back to right at the beginning, talking about self-worth and stuff. A lot of that stuff you just can't control unless you want to throw your hat in the ring and get in there and shake it up and make things happen. So if you can't control it, don't worry about it. Focus on the things that you can control and make the changes that you need to make in order to become a better version of yourself or a better business, etc. So yeah, I guess to touch on your point, I don't disagree with you. And I think too often people are waiting on others to make the change or be the change that they need to make in themselves, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. It's a really interesting conversation to have. And I've always, my entire life, if there's anything that's gone wrong or anything that we've got something wrong, one of my junior staff has just really fucked something up. Not that happens often.
Name shame.
Yeah, that's right. Then the first question I always ask is, okay, what have I done to contribute towards this? And there's huge power in that, and I don't think that is something that enough people ask questions about. They'll blame the leadership, they'll blame Cindy, you know, and there's a lot of things that you know, look, there's a lot of decisions that were made that you can agree with or not agree with, you know. You're not in that chair, you're not making those decisions, but the impact that has on your life, while yes, in many ways there is a material impact. If you didn't want to get vaccinated, then there was an impact there as an example. You know, and that's a real extreme example, I think, where, you know, anyway, we won't go too far into that. You know, that was a real extreme example where there's nothing that particular group of people could have realistically have done. But pulling it back to all these things happen to you, and all these things happen in life. It's how you react to it, and it's within yourself to look and go, okay, what changes do I need to make to ensure that I learn from this, grow from this, and improve future outcomes off the back of this. I think there's huge power in that mindset. So maybe that's the answer to self-worth, mate. I don't know.
Yeah, you got it. Well, to end on a story in honor of your storytelling, have you heard the story of the two Vietnam ex-military soldiers? I don't know why I added military there. And they met up 20 years ago. Have you heard that one?
No.
So they come back 20 years later. They catch up. One of them's like, oh, how you been? Oh, incredible. Like, I've got a new wife, got kids. Like, my life is amazing. How are you? And the guy says, fucking awful. That guy, Dave, what he did that day is so horrific. I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. It's just ruined my whole life. And the other guy responds, says, you know, he died that day. And I think that's a lot of people's lives. They're bullying themselves once the bully leaves. Yeah. Yeah,
interesting. Good story, mate. Good story.
Poetic end, or you got something?
There we go.
I thought it was a dramatic end, but it sounds like you got something coming. You go on. You cap it off.
No, mate.
You're going for the three-peat. Don't choke.
That will happen, by the way. Yeah. That will happen. Shout out Auckland Hornets. No, mate, look, I don't have any stories to end with. I guess, you know, what's next for you? What's next in your journey? Well, you know, more podcasts, more things going on. You're trying to build a media empire. You know?
Yeah, my end goal, I don't give a fuck how I get there, is to give every person the opportunity to live a fulfilling life. I learned money because that's an important part of that. That's why I became an advisor.
Yeah.
Now I'm learning marketing, reach as many people as humanly possible, and then it's about what do I offer. So right now, that's how the fuck I get there. At the moment, partner with a media agency because I had a limiting belief around money, about being like, if I'm not making the money, it's not worth anything. So instead of trying to work out how to make the money, I just found people that can.
Yeah. That's good, mate.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, it's a barnacle that you just suck onto that big ship, mate. You know, there's huge strategy in that, mate. You know?
Well, I mean, I can.
I hear.
Yeah.
Strengths and weaknesses, right? You know, and if that's a real that's a go-to-market strategy right there.
Is it?
Yeah.
Good.
Hell yeah. It's distribution strategy, isn't it? You go to a big...
I don't know what I'm fucking doing, bro. I'm just talking to people like you. And you said distribution strategy, so I'm on something. Don't know what that means.
Maybe you should read up on that, mate.
Okay.
How are you getting your products and service into the hands of your customers? And if you're going through bigger ends of town for that are on selling your products and services, then that's a good go-to-market strategy.
Okay, cool.
I would think, if it works well for you and it pays your bills.
It should. Yeah. I'm just going to cold call cunts and interview them podcasts. But then now he's like, work exclusively with me as an agency. Now I'm like, well, I just booked 11 appointments.
Yeah,
what do I do now?
Yeah. So you're enjoying it? Are you learning?
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's fuck. I feel alive, man.
Yeah.
I have one employee from like day dot and I keep pulling off payroll somehow. And it's just exciting. Yeah. It's so exciting. And then I just realize how much of my life is limited by me. And there's no one to blame but me.
Is there a diversity in thinking in terms of the people that you're interviewing? Look, I've listened to a couple of your podcasts since you reached out. There's quite a big back catalogue in there, mate. So I'll start chewing through those. But do you find that there's quite a big difference in diversity of thinking around business in New Zealand, or do you think that everybody's kind of playing from the similar playbook, if that makes sense?
The losers are, and I don't mean that in a mean way. The people that aren't successful, the one-man bands, there's consistent threads.
Yep.
Like, one, the inability to delegate or trust others.
Yep.
Thinking they can do better than others, so an ego and inability to learn. And a poor acquisition model.
Yep. Okay. Interesting. So you're seeing different personality traits. So can you size people up pretty quickly after talking through them then?
Even on the call, bro, I'm like... It's going to be a struggle for you. And that's not even... Because as I say, I was fearful of talking to people. So I've had 100,000 conversations, shall we say. Yeah. And I'm obsessive about how they think, why they think that way. So I start to see it, but try to treat them as an individual.
Yep.
In terms of the leaders like you, I see the success in what you do as putting others... having an intensity and extreme ownership. Like, you put others before yourself. You try and focus on achieving their objectives. You take extreme ownership, so everything's your fault. And you do the work. You put your head down, you focus, but you understand that you're not necessarily the right person for the job, and you should stay focused in a certain arena. So I can see, where I see potentially from talking to people with more staff is the systemization of what you believe, and the beyond the one-person conversations, and how you navigate that. Is probably what I think would be your...
Therein lies probably the biggest challenge I'm grappling with on the business front at the moment, mate.
Wow.
It's how to do that.
Well, what's it? Traction? I'll find out. It's basically, I was talking to a business coach that essentially uses this system. It sounds like you got all these kinds of systems, but it's just a framework for the leadership team. You probably know it. EOS.
Oh, yeah. I've heard of that. Yep. I think
doesn't land. How are you going to solve it? Like, are you going to find someone with 100 staff and they're going to tell you're an idiot in this way, or what's your? We're still going. Eh?
Yeah. Hey, that's cool, mate. As I said, I've got no time limit. How am I going to solve that? I don't know how I'm going to solve that. Other than trying things and seeing if they work, and if they fail, learning from it. So I'm trying the whole storytelling thing at the moment. Definitely systematization and process and all of that kind of stuff is important. That whole Simon Sinek, start with why, that kind of stuff. So trying to instill that kind of thing as much as possible, but try to reiterate what we're doing, where we're going, why we're doing what we do. There's something in that. I don't pretend to believe that I can inspire the entire troops every single day of their lives to turn up and bleed BBT. That would be totally unrealistic. But just trying to help them understand where are we going, what does success look like, and how are we going to get there, and where do you fit within that framework? If we can get close to something like that, I think that's the answer. And I have spoken to owners of bigger businesses. I always tempered that a little bit, though, with the challenges of every business and every different vertical are different. So if you're a manufacturing organization and you've got 1,000 staff, the types of personalities you're dealing with is different. The types of challenges that you're dealing with are different. So how you would interact with those demographic of people, those personality types, I guess, is very different to my crew, if that makes sense. So just because it worked for that business doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for my business, but it's understanding what are the common themes. And ultimately, what I have deduced down, and you might be able to tell me differently, mate, because you've interviewed a lot of people, just get the right team alongside you, focused on the areas that they need to focus on in order to grow and develop and improve, get out of their way, but provide an environment where they understand why we're making the decisions that we are and what we're doing. And if we can do that, perhaps, we can continue to grow and improve and do cool shit.
Interesting. So I actually think what I said was stupid, the EOS, in hindsight now, just listen to you. Because, you're very good at the system, process, tactical, you're willing to make changes. I think, personally, my 2 cents, knowing nothing. Yeah. Just listening to smart
you know
people.
Something, mate. Come on, don't sell yourself short. This is that monetary limiting factor, mate,
Yeah, it's true. I know people.
Yeah.
Because I want to know them.
Yeah.
Listening to you, I genuinely believe, like you're saying, that vision piece, and not just some, fucking team directed thing. Hoorah, I'm ticking this box because I care about you and I know that's good leadership. I think if you can tie in either that family component or wanting to be good enough, for example, we're trying, do you feel like you free up time for business owners to spend time with people that matter?
Not really, mate, to be honest, because a lot of the business owners and stuff that we're working with, the problems that they have in this arena is a problem in a list of other problems, if that makes sense. Certainly we free up staff, we free up process, we free up systems, we get better visibility around that, we improve how their customers are interacting with their business and improve conversion through that. So there's definitely... we make huge improvements and huge gains in those areas. Whether or not it frees up their time, that's up to them.
Yeah, okay.
You know what I mean? Like the types of kind of the kind of mid-market that we kind of sit in, the business owner generally isn't the person on the tools doing things day in, day out. They've got a team of people. They've got an established systems, established process. We're just going in there and turbocharging it. Or they don't quite have the reach to their customers. So how do you improve that customer experience? Making big gains in that area can provide huge ROI for them as well. But no, it doesn't really free them up, I don't believe, if that makes sense. And more often than not, we're not dealing with the business owners. You're dealing with mid-market companies with their CEOs and that kind of thing. A lot of times we are dealing with the owners, but more often than not, that's been delegated down to somebody else to work with us and solve the problem.
Okay, well, I don't have the answer.
I didn't expect you to, mate.
No, I've solved it. Fuck up. Nah. What the biggest thing for me just hearing you is it lacks soul. You know what I'm saying? So you're incredible operators. I can gather that. The way you process, the way you systemize, the way you listen and execute. I can get that. It doesn't make sense to me. I come in, okay, you can help me develop. We've got this fucking KPI. You hit this target, you achieve that, you get there. And then maybe they drop off to try a new thing. And it's quite hard to keep everyone. And then they're executing on the expectation, but it's more of accountability than it is like, I'm thinking outside of this to take you to another level because we're going here. I think I don't have the answer. It might be soul searching on you, but I think that's the biggest thing is it lacks soul. Okay.
The vision lacks soul, you think?
I don't believe the vision.
Interesting. Okay.
For you. I don't know these cunts. Shout out.
I'll think about that.
Yeah, cool. Well, thanks for coming on.
No worries, mate. We're going to end on that cliffhanger, right?
Whoa, how the fuck can you keep
you're
it going?
soulless.
Yeah, you like soul, bro. You need to get some music.
Holy, okay, all right. That's good. That's good something to think through on a Tuesday morning.
I'm thinking as an employee, I don't want to work for anyone ever again, but if I was going to work for someone, I'd be like, what do we stand for? Where are we going?
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, 10% of technology. For what? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, okay.
I ease up on
I'm going to flick that back to my senior leadership
team. Give him my number. He said it, not me.
That's all right. Yeah, good. Okay. Well, there we go, mate. You've provided some value, so congratulations.
Thanks,
you
mate.
said at the beginning you wouldn't do that, so you have. Well done.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Boom. We're done.